Hello, everyone. My name is Vicente Martinez. I'm an applications engineer here at MachineMetrics. And today I'm going to walk you through a couple of use cases for our report builder and our custom dashboard creator. The key use case here is to go deeper as customers start to discover not only the utilization of their machines, so how much am I using my machines per hour, per shift, per day, per operator. Usually customers start to understand this data and they want to get deeper into the data that we are pulling. So given that we are natively integrated with most of these CNC controllers and PLCs and other kinds of controllers. We usually get a lot more data. The next data item that we usually analyze is part counts, and therefore we start getting cycle times. And we're going to walk through a couple of reports and eventually build out a dashboard that is going to show us not only the highest volume part number that we are producing, but then we're gonna essentially zoom into that part number and understand how the cycle time is has some changes and some variations that we probably would assume that don't exist when we are doing these kind of like ERP average standards. We tend to think that we have a pretty standardized cycle time, when in reality, machines can have some variations, and these variations in cycle time can represent at least a 10% of difference on your performance. And therefore, if we're able to standardize that a lot more as we understand how these cycle times change, we can get even 10% more parts, even bigger numbers if we have some deficiencies that we hadn't been able to see before until we really start getting the real time native data that is coming out of the machines. So we're going to start here at the machine switcher, but now we're going to get into our reporting tool. So we have some out of the box reports, but we are going to dive deeper into the reporting tool, which is essentially kind of like a dynamic tables style where we're able to drive some of the data items that we're going to be using. So we have a lot of data items that we can pull here into this reporting tool, but I want to focus right now on the volume of my parts. So I am going to do my total part counter. Today is a Sunday, so I haven't produced any parts. But if I look at my last 7 days, I am going to pull the total amount of parts that I have produced during my last week, and that is 3,800 parts. Now, this is for the whole shop. This is anonymized data. Now we are gonna group it by our machines. So we would see different machines. Again, these are anonymized machine names, but we can see that if we sort it out, there are a couple of machines that have produced a lot more parts. Probably those cycle times are a lot faster than the other machines. But now we want to focus on part numbers. So we're going to group by operation. And I am going to pull this up here. I'm going to drag and drop it. You can see that the data reconfigurates. And now we have our most produced part number. So it's this 47, 42, 75, and these we'll call it the operation 363. That usually corresponds with an E against a D. That's probably an operation 20 against an operation 10. So there are a couple of machines, if I dive into the details of machines that have been producing that part number, almost the same part number, which tells me that these probably are two machines in sequence. So one is probably doing one part and then comes to the next sequence. Now, now that I know what my most produced part number is, I want to do another report. I'm going to save this one just for now. So I'm going to do parts volume last 7 days. I'm going to save it and I'm going to make it public because I want my colleagues to look at this report. I'm going to be able to share it, and I'm also going to be able to schedule sending it on a PDF to several different recipients, maybe daily, maybe every week. For these last 7 days parts volume, we probably want to do it every week. But now that we know what the what our highest volume is, I'm just going to copy this part number and I'm going to do some reporting. I'm going to create another report where I am directly going to filter by that particular part number. and we saw that it was the letter E that was the most produced. So now I'm directly filtering that one, and I am gonna get my cycle time. So I'm gonna look here for my total part time and my actual part time. So I am again gonna pull my last 7 days, and I am directly seeing without grouping by machine, but we know that there are a couple of machines that have been producing this per number, that we have a total part time that is a lot higher than the actual part time. And the big difference here is that total part time includes the average downtime that has happened in between these parts. So it could be, any plant breaks, any loading and unloading. If I filter by my productive shifts, I am going to take away the weekends. So I am going to include my operational shifts. You can see that my total part-time has changed, but my actual part-time hasn't really changed. The difference is my actual part-time is just the time that my machine is taking to actually make that part. So if my machine was running 24/7 and I didn't have to load and unload, or I didn't have any tool changes or any breaks in between my parts, I would be making parts a part every 2 minutes and 23 seconds. But reality is we have breaks, we have lunch, we have to change our tools, and therefore my actual total part time is 7 minutes and 34 seconds. Now, this is an average for my last 7 days. What if I want to group by day? So I want to see if this has changed across, my different days. We can see, that we have a really big total part time for August 13, which I believe was a Wednesday. That probably means that the machine was down for a long time during that day. If I want to take away that total part time, so I only want to see time that my machine was taking to make that part, we usually expect, when we do our CAD programs and just download them to the machine, we would expect a non-variant cycle time. But we can see that there are a couple of differences here. So my highest machining time is 2 minutes and 28 seconds, whereas my fastest time is 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Those 10 seconds of difference, if you start thinking about, doing that at least for 10 hours during the shift, that starts to add up, and you will have less parts if you run at this speed at 2 minutes and 28 seconds than if you ran at 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Now, why don't we also group by machine? So let's see which machine is making this part number faster than the other. We can see that one of those machines is making these parts in average at 2 minutes and 27 seconds. And the other one beats that for 7 seconds. Now, if we click on the details, again, we will see several days in which they're really beating that number. So we'll see that August 12th is 2 minutes and 40 seconds compared to 2 minutes and 19 seconds. Now we have a difference on that machine during last week of 21 seconds, and that is pretty representative. Now, we know these numbers are representative or are more significant because we chose the highest volume, the part with the highest volume, so that we know that it's not that we made 10 parts or 20 parts. We know that we made a significant amount of parts during this week, and that means that these numbers might be significant. Maybe August 13, as we saw previously, we had a pretty high total part time. We were only able to make 90 parts. So that's why our average might be kind of like an outlier. But the rest, we can start trusting that these are variant cycle times. And eventually we will want to dive into that. Now, how about we start bringing this data together? And I'm going to show you directly how this would look into a dashboard. This is what we're going to be building in a moment. Now we're analyzing that part number, and we also added a couple of other widgets. And it is really, really easy to start playing around with those, move them around, put the data that we want to see, and just aggregate those reports against maybe 14 days, 7 days, 30 days, year to date. We can start crunching a lot of numbers here. So I am going to build that dashboard from scratch. I'm going to add a widget, and this is essentially just an empty canvas where we can start adding our reports. Let's say that we know I did my volume per part report here. I'm going to save it here. and I'm going to put it here. I'm going to, make it a little bit bigger. Now I want to bring my cycle time report here. So I want to call this the part number that I have, and I'm going to call it cycle time. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to make it public because I can have some private reports that only I can see, but I can also share them with my colleagues. And I am going to refresh this page. And now I'm going to be able to see that report that I just created. So I'm going to create another widget, and I'm going to pull up a custom report that we know is this one, cycle time. So now both reports are available here, and we can start telling the story. We can start saying, hey, the reason why I started zooming into this part number is because I know that it is during the last 7 days the part that I produce the most. And now I can start seeing my difference between machines and between days. Now, if I wanted to pull some different KPIs, I can do a KPI metrics widget, and I can start maybe talking about performance, because performance is directly linked to my cycle times. And I only want to get these two machines. So now I can see my performance, and I'm going to talk about my last 7 days. That is going to compare a period of those 7 days against the previous period. So now maybe not only want to get performance, but I want to get my parts goal, I want to get my availability, and I can start pulling some more data here, and I can start aggregating and telling a different story through a dashboard. So not only can we now create custom reports that can get sent via an email and get a PDF for my key stakeholders to understand what is going on, I can put them into a dashboard, start putting a story where I can essentially tell with real time data and with real numbers what is going on with my cycle times. And I can also schedule those messages and those dashboards to be sent to my key stakeholders maybe every week, but I want to send them every Friday because that's the end of the week. And I want to analyze how we did at a certain time. Maybe it's just going to be for a certain amount of time. I can give it a subject, and I can include that as a PDF report. And I'm going to get an email every Friday, maybe at 3 p.m. when the shift is ending. And I'm going to get a report on how I did on my cycle times. So this is pretty good for keeping pace on continuous improvement initiatives and understanding, has my initiative and the changes that I did, are they taking effect, and am I actually beating my cycle times, or am I increasing my baseline utilization or increasing my baseline production? I hope that this has been helpful. Let me know if you have any other questions, but thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you next time.